Hello children, and welcome to today's collective worship with Mrs. Robertson. And I'd like to start our collective worship today by saying, today is a special day. Let us all rejoice in being together. And I'd like everybody else in your classes to say, let us all rejoice in being here together today. So let's try that again. And if the grown-ups in your classes wouldn't mind helping with this, I'm going to say, today is a special day. Let us all rejoice in being together. And now you can say, let us all rejoice in being here together today. Okay. Whilst we're thinking, as we always do when we see a candle, we think about what our collective worship might be about. And today, we're actually thinking about children's rights. Now, some of our older children will remember that actually at Mark, we are what is called a rights respecting school. And what that means is that we teach you about all the different children's rights. And one of the rights is called the right to say what you think should happen and be listened to. Now, some of our younger children might think, I don't really understand what this is. So let me just explain a little. In the world, we have what's called the Convention for the Rights of the Child. And what that means is that everybody around the world has to make sure that children have things that are right and that should happen for them. So all of you have the right to go to school. You all have the right to have a home. You have the right to play and to learn. And everybody around the world has to make sure that these rights actually happen. I don't know if any of our older children can remember how many children's rights there are, but if you can't remember, there are 42. And today we're focusing on what is called the number 12. All the rights are actually known as articles, and we call them Article 1 to 42. And today's is called Article 12, which is you, and that's all of you, have the right to say what you think should happen, but you should also be listened to. And that is what we're focusing on today. So I want you to try and think, what would happen if every child in every school left school? So when you left Mark in year 4, what would happen if you couldn't read, or if you couldn't write, you couldn't spell, you couldn't do any PE, you couldn't play any music? Imagine if you didn't learn anything at all, or if you didn't go to school. Imagine what that would be like. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Every child has a right to go to school. But imagine if you couldn't. In this picture, you can see a lot of children sat around a world map. Imagine if you didn't go anywhere else apart from Mark. Some of you don't all live in Mark. I know you live outside of the area, but imagine if you never went anywhere out of where you lived. So out of Mark, out of Somerset. Some people travel around England. Some people go on holiday to other countries. You can see lots of other countries on that world map. Imagine if children never learnt about what happened in other countries around the world. Every child has a right to learn about what happens around the world. Now imagine if we didn't have any doctors or nurses. Imagine if children didn't learn how to become a nurse or a doctor. Would we have people working in our hospitals? Would we have people working in our doctors? We need to provide an education for children to learn how to become these important people. Imagine over the last 2 years, if we hadn't have had doctors and nurses. We've been trying to get through a very difficult time, which is now known as COVID-19. Imagine if we didn't have special people like doctors and scientists trying to fight and work out what sort of vaccine we needed to help us fight this awful disease. Every child has a right to learn how to be someone important in this world. Imagine a world where children didn't know about their rights. Now, some of you all know that you're at school and that you have a right to be there. But some of these children are from countries around the world, and they are saying that every child has a right to have their own voice. Imagine, though, if children didn't have their voice. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Or do you think that children should be listened to? Imagine if we didn't have any dreams or hopes of reaching our goals. You can see someone there trying to reach something very important. Some of us want to get better at things like reading, writing. You might want to get better at playing sport, at doing dance. It might be that you want to get better at cooking or doing things to help your mums and your dads. Some of us might want to think about being somebody quite incredible in this world. Imagine if we could make a difference to others. We all have to have our dreams and goals. Now, for some of our little children that might not be able to read this, there are actually some children in this world who don't go to school. And that number is 67 million. Is that a big number? Yes, it is. It's a massive number of children. Is that right? Or is it wrong? It's not right that children are not at school, because every child has a right to an education and to go to school. Now, to help us understand what rights respecting schools are all about and why children have a right to an education, but also to have a voice, this is the story of a young girl called Malala. And Malala lived in Pakistan, in India. Now, she was somebody very special who made a difference in the world. She was only 11 years old when, going back to 2009, she published a very special diary, which was all about her life in Pakistan. And she became famous because she told her story in it. Now, she captivated not just children, but adults all around the world. And she talked about young girls struggling to go to school, because not like our country, where girls all go to school, in some countries, girls are not allowed to go to school because they have to stay at home and they have to help do work around the house, or they may have to do a job for their mummy or their daddy. But they're not allowed to actually go to school. Malala was actually brave enough, and she spoke out for children to be able to go to school. Now, Malala was very, very brave, but one day she actually got hurt, and that meant it stopped her from speaking out for all children around the world. But fortunately, she was brought to England to get better, and her dad was able to come over from Pakistan and work over here in what we call an embassy. And he worked, and Malala and him lived in Birmingham for 3 years. And when she was well enough, she went to school in Birmingham, and it was a high school at that time, and it was in a place called Edgbaston. Now, on the 12th of July 2013, it was Malala's 16th birthday. She was better by now, and she actually addressed the United Nations, which is a massive conference of people from all around the world. She spoke at a special assembly, and she said, "I am here to speak up for every child around the whole world. Every child has a right to an education." People were so impressed with her bravery and couldn't believe how courageous she was. She stood up in front of all those people, and she said that some people in this world thought that I might be stopped of my ambitions. But no, I've come back and I'm stronger and I'm braver, and I am here to represent all the children around the whole world. Now, the year after this, Malala was 17, and she was actually called out of school, and she didn't know why she was called out of school, but she was told some really, really exciting and very, very surprising news. She had been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, which is a very special award because it's given to people who do the most or the best work between nations around the whole world. Malala was so proud, and lots of young children around the world remember Malala for everything she did to speak out for children all around the world. She was so proud. She said that, "I am a young person from Pakistan in India, and I am the first young person to get this award. This is just the beginning for me." And many young children read and learn about Malala as somebody who is an inspiration, somebody that you think, wow, I wonder if I'm somebody that could do something to make a difference. That might be just in our school today, thinking about how we can make a difference. But the story of Malala helps us to understand a bit more about children's rights. And I hope today that that's helped you to understand that every child has a right to speak out, just like Malala. And all of you have the right too. And all of you have the right to an education, which is why you're all at school. So we have a special thank you to say to Malala for being brave to speak out for all of us. Now, we have thought lots about children's rights and also thinking about Malala, but now we're going to finish our collective worship by just putting our hands together and having a moment to reflect. We're going to say, "God in heaven, hear my prayer. Keep me in thy loving care. Be my guide in all I do. Bless all those who love me too. Amen." Thank you for listening today. I hope you found that interesting. Children's rights is something quite tricky to understand, but when we're able to all go back in the hall together for collective worship, we'll be doing more about this, and we can help you understand it a little bit more clearly. But hopefully the story of Malala has helped you today to really think about that concept of rights respecting schools. Thank you for listening, children, and I shall see you all soon, and have a lovely day. Bye for now. Bye.